Melbourne City. Another worldie from Gilnick rescues Melbourne victory. We'll chat to their star goalkeeper, Lydia Williams. And Haymon marks her Matildas call-up with a goal-scoring masterclass in the West. I'm Breanna Holden. Welcome to Dub Zone. And this week we are joined, as always, by A-League commentator Teo Pellizzeri. Teo, lovely to have you here.
Good to see you, Breanna.
And Cath, Cannuli A-League veteran. So great to have you here as well.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Breanna. Lovely to have you here as well.
Thank you very much. Now, it was a fantastic weekend again in Liberty A-League action, but we have to start with that big ticket match, Sydney FC and Melbourne City. A 0-0 draw, but the big talking point was, of course, Barbieri in goals after Prue left City.
Yeah, not often you lead off with a 0-0 draw as the story of the weekend, but I think we have to, given that these two teams have ended the weekend as first and third. And Catherine, Melissa Barbieri coming in for Lydia Prue, who was sold during the week for an A-League women's outgoing transfer record at 44 years of age. Still got it. Still the number one for Melbourne City, and stepping up to save a penalty from Princess Abini was perhaps the crowning moment on a day where Sydney FC had the majority of the chances.
She sure does, and look at this save against Princess Abini. We know Bubs is, she's a veteran in this competition, but she's just a true professional. To be able to be 44 years of age and still be able to step up and play at this level just goes to show what type of professional she is and how she looks after herself. And not only is she a great leader on the field, but off the field, she's a perfect mentor to all those young players that are coming through the City Football Club. With
that said, in-season departure, City could potentially get an exemption because it is a goalkeeper. So they've got Melissa Barbieri, number one, youngster Sophia Varley, who has one appearance to her name in the league as a backup. Do City look to who's available on a free transfer? Do they go and investigate what's out there and look to use the fact it is a goalkeeper to maybe try and get an exemption to add a player out of window in order to get them to the finish line this season?
Absolutely. I think the City Football Group will be looking to always add to their stocks, as they always work. They want to be top of the group. They want to be always, up there at the pointy end of the season. And I think Bubs understands her role within the team, and when she is called upon, she does step up and she is there. But I think long term, they know that Bubs isn't the answer. So if a player does come up and a goalkeeper does come up, and they can look to next season as well, I'm sure that they would jump on it. But if they have to stay with Bubs for the rest of the season, I'm sure that's not a bad thing either, because we have seen time and time again when she is called upon, she does deliver for the group.
Now, the interesting thing about losing Prue to Bay FC in the NWSL, and a few days before that, Caitlin Torpey to San Diego. So Melbourne City have sold two players in a season where they're top. They're trying to win the grand final in addition to winning the Premier's Plate. What does it say about the club that they've made two record transfer sales in a week, hurting themselves short term? What's the long-term strategy behind agreeing to selling these two players? It can't purely be the incoming transfer fees, which we understand are 5 and 6 figures respectively, breaking the league record on both occasions.
I think this is massive for the City Football Group. I think for Melbourne City to say that, they're taking the women's game seriously, and they're looking at, investing in players and looking to then on-sell them, just goes to show where they see, the women's game. And I think all in all, they'll be looking at now, players will be looking to say, okay, well, if Melbourne City are doing this and they are selling, players to these big clubs for record fees, a lot of players next season are going to want to go to Melbourne City, because they're going to be the starting point for players to be able to be sold overseas, because not everyone just wants to play in the Liberty A-League. A lot of players want to move on from this league and progress their football. And if Melbourne City can provide that, they've just shown that the opportunities are there.
And a little factor in that as well, maybe a bigger factor, is if you move for free, it's great, but you can also be released. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Whereas if a club makes a big outlay, breaking a record transfer fee in this instance, they're invested and they want to see a return on that investment. And it means that Caitlin Torpey's going to, the NWSL, but we are assured, I think, given the amount of money paid, that it's not going to be turning around and coming back by the start of next season. If it's not working out, they'll persist with it, surely.
Absolutely, and you can just see by these record fees, it just goes to show where the women's game is actually going. And it's fantastic to see that these players are getting sold, and the way that women's football is being shown on the world stage. It's just, for me to see it where it started to where it is now, it's such a great honour. But, look at Caitlin Torpey, for instance. I tried to sign her about 3 years ago at Western Sydney Wanderers. She decided to go to Melbourne City because of obviously the City group and where they're at. And look at where she's gone over the last few years. She's been a fantastic addition to the Melbourne City team. And to see her be sold to San Diego, I think is a credit not only to Melbourne City but to the league and to show what we can do in Australia.
All right, well, let's talk about Sydney as well, because that was a fantastic performance by the Sky Blues, in particular Princess Abini. But looking at this performance, is it maybe, Cath, a blueprint or a way that other teams can approach getting a result from this City side?
Of course, you know, Sydney FC would have done a lot of work leading up into this game to look at ways that they could break down, you know, this City team. We know how good they are, especially in possession. The City team likes to keep possession. It was unfortunate for them in this game that they couldn't really get anything out of it. But Sydney FC, you've got to give credit to Ante Juric. He's had so many chopping and changing across this season with his team to be able to still go out there and get results and be at, you know, that top end of the table. I think is a credit not only to Ante but the whole team.
Before we get back to City, though, Sydney FC, this is their 3rd 0-all of the season. We have to call a spade a spade. The handbrake's on. I don't think they're getting the most out of themselves.
I don't think the handbrake is on. I think, you know, Sydney FC, credit to them, they've had so much chopping and changing. And if you look at some of the youngsters that have come in, for instance, someone like a Maddie Caspers that has never played in this league, she's gone into this squad. You look at the players that they've got, Courtney Vine, Abini, Hawkesby, Jada Wyman. You know, there's so many quality players that have been there for such a long time. It's not easy to walk into a Sydney FC team and just all of a sudden just turn it on. But I think over the last couple of weeks, the combination play, the way the team is starting to come together, I think it just takes time to get these youngsters to get that bit of confidence and to be able to settle into a team like Sydney FC that is always top of the table. The demands at Sydney FC are always so high. They're a winning team. That culture is there. They only know how to win. And to see these youngsters, Dos Santos, Caspers, the way that they're coming at their age, I think they've just been, honestly, very, very good, and they're just getting better and better as the weeks go on.
Regardless of how Sydney played, Melbourne City, this was their most goal-shy and attacking sort of empty performance of the season. 2 shots, both off target. Amina Rekic, the only player to take a shot, 0.24 XG, which is unheard of for Melbourne City, especially given the volume of chances they've created this season. How much of this is a City off day for their creators like Ekic and Rihanna Polisina and Daniela Garlich, and how much of this was the Sydney FC game plan to nullify those attacking threats?
I think it was a bit of both. I think the game plan by Sydney FC to go out and to be able to take out players like Polisina and Garlich and Ekic out of the game, knowing that they're the key players, they're the ones that create for Melbourne City. I think that was part of, obviously, Ante's game plan, but also Melbourne City sometimes not taking their chances. There's times where players are in and around the 18-yard box and they're still trying to pass it, and they play a beautiful style of football. The way that they keep possession, the way they pass and move that ball around, it's a beautiful style of football. But unfortunately, if you're not shooting, you're not scoring, you can't win games. And for me, if I'm in Dario's seat, I'd be going in, you know, this week and talking about we want to be moving the ball around, but when you get in and around the 18-yard box, that's when you need a little bit of individual brilliance, where some players need to just take it within themselves and have a shot, have a crack. They had plenty of opportunities. There was times when they got into that front third and they're still trying to pass the ball around. Somebody needs to have a crack and sort of take that ownership. 8
touches in the penalty area, a really quiet day for them in an attacking sense.
All right, now the other question is, of course, was it part of the Sydney FC game plan to maybe head to the wrong venue and delay kickoff? Because that is exactly what happened. Cath, how does this happen?
I don't know, but I tell you what, if I was Ante Juric sitting on that bus knowing that we have gone to the wrong venue, you would be absolutely fuming as a coach. And as a player, it's uneasy. You're a bit distressed because you've got a game plan. You're looking at ways that you can sort of settle in, but knowing that you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, it's just, I don't know how that happens. Maybe it was Melbourne City trying to do something.
No, I think it's people from Sydney not paying enough attention to Melbourne. What's new?
All right, now a team that did make it to the venue is, of course, Melbourne Victory. They took on the Central Coast Mariners on Saturday afternoon as well. Teo, Mariners were dominant early. They scored early, but Victory just still not clicking.
No, and it was interesting the way that Victory approached this game, Catherine. There's one key word. This is Peter Trimmer scoring the opening goal of the game in just the 6th minute. One key word that you have chosen to sort of typify how Victory are approaching games at the moment.
Absolutely. I think, defensively, the Melbourne Victory have been very reactive in the way that they defend. They're not being very proactive, and you can see here with Jamila Rankin being blindsided by Peter Trimmis as well. And it's something that they really need to get a lot better at, and they need to really focus down on, because defensively they haven't been great. And, I was very lucky here for the individual brilliance of Emily Gilnick that gets them a point out of this game. But other than that, in the first half, really, the Central Coast Mariners dominated this game.
Nice moment for Kaya Simon here, nearly scoring an amazing goal. Her comeback from injury continuing. But, Victory gradually took over the game as it went on. But I think reactive is a great way to sort of summarise how a lot of their games are going at the moment.
All right. Now, we also saw Lydia Williams is out in this match, and we are lucky enough to be joined by her today. Lydia, can you hear us here on Dub Zone?
Yes, loud and clear.
So thankful that you can be here. Can you talk to us a little bit about that injury and I guess how the recovery is going?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a accumulation of playing for so long that, it was just a freak dive that I ended up, I think moving some bones around that was in my ankle joint, and ended up being just a simple clean out, which I think was a bit of a treasure hunt for the surgeon, getting rid of all the things that were floating around. So, not out for a very long time, but, enough to... it was a needed surgery to kind of get me back on the path of, hopefully making finals and onwards with the national team too.
Is that deadline finals, or is there a round at the end of the home and away season that you're targeting, all going to plan?
All going to plan, hopefully, in March before we get to finals. But yeah, we just have to kind of take it day by day. I'm not a young 20-year-old anymore, so, slow and steady wins the race, after you're in your 30s.
Victory find themselves in such a unique situation because Miranda Templeman, the other contracted goalkeeper, is also out with a long enough injury that you've got Courtney Newbon on an emergency contract and also Gio Candy, the backup keeper as well. What expertise and also sort of integrating have you been able to impart? Because it's not one fresh face, it's two that have come in to help the club in their hour of need.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really lucky with Courtney. She's come in having been playing some games in the Liberty A-League during the season. So, she's ready to go in terms of playing. Gio's come in and has been really ready to learn. And it's actually been a really good fit. Everyone's been supportive of each other. Both myself and Miranda have been around for team meetings and whenever we needed to help out in any way with the goalkeepers. But yeah, it's a real, a lot of communication and kind of trying to encourage during trainings, especially with such a tumultuous time of, two goalkeepers getting injured in the space of a couple of weeks.
Lids, the Victory performances have been a little bit hot and cold this season. You guys have had 6 wins and 5 draws at the moment. You're sitting on 23 points. You've got quite an experienced squad, and coming into this competition, everybody was talking about Victory being, up there with their performances, but it's been a little bit off for the team. And with all this experience around the squad, what have you found of it?
Yeah, I guess you could kind of say it has felt a little bit reactive. I think, we've had so many fresh faces coming in, whether it's been, through injury or obviously different people signing for Victory. So I think the time that we've had to kind of gel together has been, I guess, in bits and pieces. The chemistry is there. It's just, in games we're just not pulling it off at the moment. But, we're right in it. It's a process. You can't go in with a new team and expect to win. I think, Klopp, it took him about 3 seasons with his Liverpool team before he reached, what they are today. So, a new squad takes time to gel, and we have to be patient with that, which it's frustrating because you want to win games and you want to be there in the finals, but sometimes that's just a reality when you bring so many players in at different levels and trying to get them to gel really quickly.
Lydia, you mentioned you're only out for a short period of time, but that does mean that you've been ruled out of this current Matildas squad. You haven't missed many camps for the Matildas. How does it feel to be sitting on the sideline for this one?
Oh, it's hard. Obviously, I want to be out there with the girls, especially in such a I guess, amazing time that we have ahead of us, especially with the Olympic qualifiers. But, you know, the second game's in Melbourne. I'll definitely be there supporting the girls, whether it be, you know, it's in the stands and not on the sidelines. But, yeah, I mean, we're all friends. We all chat. So I guess it's like anyone that's been out, your thoughts and best wishes are with them. But you know that with the Tillies, everyone can just come back in and it's like a family. You welcome them back in when they're ready to come over again.
Well, you mentioned welcoming family members back in, and one of the biggest surprises in this squad was Michelle Haymon being called back to this team. I mean, you've played with her, you've played against her. How good is her form right now compared to when she was at her peak prior to 2018?
Yeah, it's amazing seeing Michelle where she is right now and performing so well. And obviously she's having fun. She's smiling after, you know, every game and you know, putting goals in the back of the net. And I think that's just a testament to, you know, her just enjoying football again and being in a really good place. And obviously she's gotten rewarded for that and been called back into the squad. So, yeah, I mean, we've said it, Tony said it many times, it's about performance and, you know, she's been having a performance and got rewarded for it.
And where do you see the A-League Women's is at? Because you played in the era where all the Matildas were in the competition. Now it's an era where players are either using it as a launch pad or perhaps they're coming back to Australia, having been to Europe or elsewhere. And as far as keeping things sharp, trying to keep standards high, what's been your interpretation of how the league has looked upon your return after playing for, really, two of the top 5 clubs in the world?
Yeah, I think it definitely is a league that's progressing. It's the quality of coaches that we're bringing in now, and you can see teams that normally in the past probably wouldn't have been in, you know, finals contention, and how close the league is now. So even though it still has you know, a ways to go to reach, you know, NWSL or Super League level, it's still there. People are taking our players to go play for their leagues instead. So people are watching, different coaches and different leagues are watching this league. They're seeing who's there to take from them. So hopefully, you know, in a couple of years we're doing the same, where we're looking at these other leagues and we're going, come in here and we'll make this league just as dominant and competitive as those ones.
And just one on yourself, because Melissa Barbieri, back between the sticks for Melbourne City, continuing to reframe what it means to play as a goalkeeper and as a veteran. Is she causing you to rethink how far away the finish line is? Because Bubs does have a generation on you. I mean, is it plausible that we're going to be seeing you playing at 44, same as Melissa Barbieri?
Never say never, but no, probably not. I mean, it's amazing what Melissa's doing, and, you know, credit to her. She's still performing and, you know, going out there and enjoying the game and really mentoring the next generation. So, yeah, obviously, what a great game she had on the weekend. Obviously, for me, it's about loving the game and making sure I'm fit and healthy. So, you know, right now, surgery was the one step I needed to make sure I'm on that path. But for me, it's always just enjoying the game and taking that as far as I can. But it's great to see, like, Bubs just going out there and dominating it still. I think that's a real credit to her and her love of the game.
All right, well, Lydia, we certainly enjoy seeing you in the game, and thank you so much, of course, for joining us on Dub Zone as well.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, well, we touched on Haymon just then with Lydia, but I mean, was that a surprise for you guys? She says she's playing like she's 21 again. What are your thoughts on her performances recently?
I think her performances in the Liberty A-League have been fantastic. To see her team at bottom of the table and for her to be up there and, you know, top of the ladder as a top goal scorer, I think, you know, it's great for her to get the opportunity to put the green and gold back on. You could see when the announcement was made what it actually meant to her as well. And, you know, it's credit to her and her performances in the Liberty A-League.
I mean, I'm not going to quibble over this Matildas team. I think it made a lot of sense. I think they've practiced what they've preached in terms of both form and also minutes. One thing to watch, though, the Champions League, when they announced that Barcelona, best women's team in the world, are playing Bran, Larissa Crummer was right there in the promotional material next to Aitana Bonmatí, the Ballon d'Or and best player in the world. We know that Crummer has had some issues with form for the Matildas. What an opportunity. Bran versus Barcelona. No one's giving Bran a hope, but hopefully Crummer can make a point, maybe score a goal or two. You just never know, Knowles. It could be the sort of thing that flips the dialogue and gets Matildas fans enthusiastic about a recall to the national team.
You never know. Teo, we have to watch this space.
All right, well, there were also a few surprises, well, maybe not surprises, but Chloe Logarzo was in the lineup or the team as well. What were your thoughts on that? I mean, she's been having a great season.
I think Chloe's been fantastic this season for Western United. She's really stepped up as not only a leader, but, you know, she's been scoring goals as well. She's been creating goals and opportunities for Western United. And I think Kat Smith coming in the turnaround for her when that happened as well has really helped her. But to see her back in the squad for the Matildas, I think is fantastic. I worked with her within the Women's World Cup, as you, Bree, and, you know, it was really tough for her to be on the sidelines and heartbreaking to see her go through what she went through, you know, watching the girls from the sidelines, to see her work so hard and get through this, you know, really hard time for her and to get back in there. It's a credit to Chloe, and it's great to see her in good form in our league. I
think it's a good sign as well that you can be outside and come back in while playing in the A-League. And the big carrot it dangles is to Emily Gielnik, because, Knowles, Gielnik is the one who's perhaps coming from a health point of view even further back than Logarzo. We're finally seeing Logarzo fit. It just never clicked for her last season. This season we're seeing her back to her best. And Gielnik now finally getting on the runway. We saw that goal yesterday for Melbourne victory. This is the evidence now that if you're playing well in the A-League, you will get called up, and that's got to be a huge incentive for Gielnik on this home stretch for victory.
Absolutely. Anyone knows Emily Gielnik's, you know, progression into the Matilda squad. It's nothing short of hard work and perseverance, and she's just, you know, a true professional in terms of how she looks after herself, and she's just such a hard worker. And you can see the last couple of goals that she scored in our league, they've been absolute crackers, and, you know, it's individual brilliance and that perseverance of trying to work hard and to get the most out of it. And it's a never say never. You never know what can happen if you are performing. Michelle Haymon is a true sentiment to what we're seeing. At 35 years old, she's performing in our league, and she's been rewarded with, you know, getting called up again.
All right, well, let's head back into the Liberty A-League action. This afternoon's match between Western United and Brisbane was an absolute cracker, Teo, but it was quite topsy-turvy. I mean, Western had the lead, then they lost the lead, and then they won. Yeah,
Brisbane will be kicking themselves because when they were in front in this game, they were within touching distance of finals. Chloe Logarzo gets it started with the header from the corner. And Brisbane, to their credit, fight back to get into a 2-1 lead. And, you know, some good wing play and really aggressive attacking from the Raw. Sian Fryer dishing off the assist here for Kaya Stevenson. Really, Knowles, Brisbane were able to exploit Western United in the wide areas in defence. And, you know, they were in a winning position in this game. They have dropped 10 points from winning positions this season, though, as we would find out as Western United came back in the second half.
For sure, and you'd be disappointed to drop points here in this game, because I thought they'd done really well. Their style of football under Alex Smith, I think, has been great, and the girls are really enjoying playing under him. And you could see the way they do progress the ball up the field, and they do get those balls into wide areas. And Fry has been fantastic in her delivery into the box, and Corbin's finish as well have been absolute quality. But they have been disappointing, especially, you know, conceding goals. We know that they've conceded a couple of goals here off corners, but, you know, there's been a few across the league for them. But it's just a tough one for Alex Smith to take, and it's really tough for the Brisbane Roar to now try and stay within the pack.
Now, Cath, the winning moment for this one was Chloe Logarzo penalty. I mean, she took quite a while to take it, but it was just an absolutely confident strike from her. How are you seeing her performances growing and her confidence growing since this Matildas call-up as well?
If anyone that knows Chloe Logarzo, we all know that she's full of confidence all the time, but I think she just took a couple of moments there before she took that penalty. I think knowing how much it would have meant to Western United, she needed to put that ball in the back of the net, and she just took her time with it, and it just shows her professionalism and how long, you know, her experience as well. She took her time, but how well does she take penalties? She's the absolute, I reckon she's one of the best penalty takers in the competition. But the way she puts that ball in the back of the net...
Unsavable. I mean, goalkeeper's gone the other way, but even if Silkowitz had gone the right way, that wasn't a savable penalty.
Yeah, it was a sure thing.
Now, we need to talk about the Roars defending at set pieces. Grace Gill, very good in the commentary on the first corner goal, to point out it was the 8th that Brisbane had conceded from a corner this season, and yet they concede another in the second half. 9 goals conceded from corners this season. Knowles, coach's hat on. If you're in this situation, how much of this is training ground? How much of this is video review? How much of it is purely mental and trying to work with players? Leah Scarpelli got a concussion and is now out with a hamstring injury, fair enough. But they were conceding these goals even with Scarpelli in the team.
One player's not going to make a difference to when you're defending a set piece, and there is so much. It's all of the above, Teo. It's training ground, it's video review, it's looking at this over and over again. And, you know, defensive set pieces are just so crucial, and set pieces in general now are just such a massive part of the game. And you can see some of the big clubs in the world that now have set piece specialists and set piece coaches. And obviously we don't have the resources in terms of our coaching staff, but in terms of looking at this as an issue for the Brisbane Roar, when you have conceded so many goals from set pieces, it's definitely something that you need to look at. What you're doing is maybe not working, or maybe you need to keep the girls back and spend a little bit more time, whether it's video review, whether it's on the pitch, more one-on-one training. You know, you could see there for Chloe Lagazzo's header, when she comes across Fryer there, you know, can you start to teach the girls on how to block, on how to use their bodies to get in front of players? How do you be more proactive in that space? But it's about time and resources, and, you know, we know that when you are looking at this part of the game, it's just about having more time and having resources around this area.
All right, well, let's move on to the Western Sydney Wanderers and Newcastle Jets, a game out in the regions. But, Teo, I think for this one, you have to say it was 3 points dropped for the Jets.
We keep saying this about the Jets, though. This is becoming something that we're referring to on a regular basis, Knowles. They took the lead, Libby Copus-Brown, with a very well-struck goal. And this was in the setting sun on Friday night. And then Sophie Harding breaks her scoreless streak, the Dove Zone curse. Non-existent, no such thing. Thank you very much. And her 9th of the season gets Wanderers level. I don't think the second half reached any great heights. And yet one set piece, one moment of taking an opportunity allows Vicky Bruce to come in, score a second against Newcastle from a set piece this season. Knowles, what went wrong for the Jets here? Because they'll be kicking themselves that they went 2 or 3-0 up and out of sight before the Wanderers got going.
We always talk about taking your opportunities in games, and Newcastle Jets had plenty of opportunities and they just didn't take them. They didn't put the ball in the back of the net. There was a few opportunities there. The one that comes to mind was the Libby Copus-Brown, where she has an open goal just to pretty much chip the keeper, and she doesn't take it. But Newcastle Jets will be absolutely kicking themselves. But the Western Sydney Wanderers, again, pick up a crucial 3 points, which moves them to 5th on the ladder, which really keeps them up there to make finals.
Western Sydney Wanderers away to victory on Friday. They got the win first time around. Sophie Harding back in scoring form. Another assist for Holly Caspers. Wanderers, is their blip over? The disappointment of that loss to Adelaide, bit of shaky form? Or do you think they're still a week-to-week proposition?
I think they're definitely still in it. You know, we could see it with the Newcastle Jets, even though they didn't have the best of games and they didn't really have the opportunities, that they didn't really create too much, but they're still finding ways to win games. And those 3 points were crucial for them this weekend.
Now, I'm going to flip it back to you, Breanna, because this town that the game took place in has a bit of a sentimental attachment for yourself. How impressive was it to see that crowd of 3,700 getting out in Bathurst? Yeah,
look, Bathurst is a rugby league town. I mean, there are a lot of rugby league players that come from there, so they get right behind it. To see this many people turn out to an afternoon match for the A-League Women's was fantastic, and it really filled me with a lot of hope about what potential we have in the regions here. And I mean, for you, Teo, you've spoken previously about the fact that we can expand more. I mean, where do you see?
I'd love Darwin. I think if we can get the territory government on board, a little bit like the Australia Cup for the men, middle of last year, that would be awesome to see Darwin, because they're not realistically going to have a team for a long time, so maybe someone can take a game there. But also, Albury-Wodonga is the other one. I can't believe a region that has contributed so many players to both the men's and women's elite level of the game, Socceroos and Matildas, that they've never hosted an A-League women's match. Knowles, you've tried Morwell. Where do you want to go next on the regional tour?
I've been to a few regional places, and Morwell, I tell you, that's an experience that I have to tell you off air. But for me, it's Mudgee. I love the town. I've gone there for a couple of football tournaments within our Southern Districts Football Association. But it's just such a beautiful town. They've got great resources there. The fields are absolutely to die for. And it's just a great town to be able to bring people. We can see what it's done in Bathurst. Let's move around and take it around to some other towns as well. I think it's fantastic, not only for the young kids of those regions, but I think it's also fantastic for the league.
Yeah, 100%. Now let's take it around to Perth for the Canberra-Perth fixture that happened on Saturday night. Teo, what did you make of this match? And of course, Michelle Haymon, another absolute cracker from her.
Yeah, Canberra will be kicking themselves. Anytime you can see the stoppage time equaliser, you'll feel as though you should have been able to come away with all 3 points. But Knowles, Canberra had Perth fight back some really good quality goals from Perth. Maybe the overall performance, they might have been the second best team, but they just needed to score some goals and get a feeling like they've got a foothold back in this season. They're still sixth. This draw keeps them in the top six ahead of an absolutely vital game against Central Coast next weekend.
It was a crucial points for Perth and for Isabel Dalton to come out with this absolute screamer, and her first goal of the Liberty A-League is just fantastic, and you can see what it means to the whole team, the way they go off and celebrate with the crowd. That's what football's made for, and that's what kids dream of as a young kid, and to see Perth Glory back in it, it was very, very important to get a point. It could have went either way, but it's a good thing for Perth Glory to be able to still stay within the pack.
Canberra, they're bottom of the league, but they could have made the jump here had they held on. Vesna Milivojevic not as prominent at the moment, getting a lot of attention from the opposition, but that is letting Nikki Flannery get off the chain, and second season back after an ACL a couple of years ago. Now we're starting to see her find her main asset, which is her speed, but also really starting to impact games.
I think Nikki Flannery has been fantastic this season. As the games have gone on, she's gotten better and better. We all know the ACL injury is such a crucial injury, and just the mental side of things that the ACLs bring for players, it's huge. And you can see them at training, they're struggling to get back into contact. And I think Nikki Flannery has been great. Her 2 assists for Michelle Haymon, the way she just works her position so well, the way she's delivering the ball for Michelle Haymon, that's one of the reasons why that Michelle is actually scoring goals, because of the delivery that she's actually getting. And it's just great to see someone like Nikki Flannery doing so well and returning from this major injury, because people don't realise what a big deal it is, not only just physically but also the mental side of it.
All right, well, those 2 goals for Michelle Haymon extend her lead at the top of this race for the Golden Boot. Teo, it is very close in the middle there. What are you seeing here, and who do you think is going to end up on top?
Gee, it's tough. Look, I do think that Bolden and Harding are both still a pretty good shout. Speckmeyer might struggle from here for Wellington. So, Knowles, you're the striker. Who's your money on to get the Golden Boot from here?
Crazy thing, I think Michelle Haymon's going to go all the way, even though Canberra United are sitting obviously bottom of the table and it hasn't been great for them, but she's just been scoring for fun. And I think as a striker, when things are just happening for you and you're in front of goal and you've just got that confidence, you're just going to keep scoring. You've already seen with Canberra United that even though they are at the bottom of the ladder, they're still scoring and creating goals.
Yeah, and Perth, are they back, or is one performance not enough to say? I said this week would be the get-right game, but is it next week now?
It's always tough for Perth. People really don't understand how hard it is to actually travel from Perth every second week to come and do those sort of miles. So I hope for their sake that they are back, because they do have a great little team, but it takes time, and momentum is always something that teams need as well. So hopefully that this point will help them. You
would have seen Sally James in the footage there. The club is sending Morgan Aquino for scans. They're confident that it is not a break in her arm. So hopefully good news for their first choice keeper, Morgan Aquino.
All right, well, that result means that Canberra is still bottom of the ladder, but at the top, things are still very, very tight as we head into the final 6 rounds of the A-League. Teo, is it down to 3 for this title race, or are you seeing it still wide open?
I think Melbourne Victory can still make a run for top spot. I know that there's a 7-point gap there at the moment. Wanderers have got that game in hand against Canberra that they've still got to go and play. Knowles, I'm going to say as low as 5th, can still finish top of the ladder. Where would you look to draw the line?
I think you're absolutely right, Teo. I think this ladder is the most excitement I've ever seen in our competition. Every game, even all the games this weekend, if you would have won, you could have been in 4th. If you don't, you're back down to 8th or 9th. And it's just so exciting, not only for the league, but for the fans as well. It just keeps everybody on the edge of their seats, and it's great for our league.
All right, well, let's hope that Teo hasn't put the curse on Melbourne Victory with this one as we look to take a look back at last week's Teo top tip. Let's see what you had to say.
Perth to beat Canberra, that's my top tip. Why do we only show these when I get them wrong? All right, nice, short and sharp this week. Brisbane were really unhappy that Serena Bolden celebrated Newcastle winning a penalty during Unite round, a penalty which they would go on to score. Well, this week, Serena Bolden will score and the Newcastle Jets will win. They will recharge their finals hopes by getting the better of Brisbane. That's my top tip.
All right, well, let's see if that one does come true, Teo. Thank you so much for joining me on Dub Zone. Cath Cannuli as well, thank you so much to you.
Thank you.
And we will see you here next week. Neve Owens will, of course, be back in the hot seat. Thank you so much for joining us.